Right, and I don't think they'll give up their islands, but it was brought up. There's no question. And, of course, the Greeks brought up the question of German gold, and the Greeks got the gold back. And it's in this issue coming out tomorrow of the International Forecaster. It was a letter to the editor. Someone wrote to me and described how the whole thing went. And so the explanations by the Greeks are untrue. I've seen the other side of the story as well. So let's just put it this way. It's up for debate. There's two sides to that story. But what's going to happen is, and the reason the bankers did this, that down the road here in a year or two, there's 19 countries who are either in bankruptcy but not declared. I guess the only one that might be declared is Iceland, and are on the edge, like the United States and Great Britain, and perhaps Ireland and Spain and Portugal as well, and perhaps even Italy. The point is, they're going to gather them all together and have their big meeting, and they're going to realign all the currencies. There'll be domestic devaluations all over the world.
Stay there. Let's start over on the big world government. The bankers bankrupt everybody through fraud and then say, we rule the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no doubt that the media is saying the 9/11 truther did the shooting at the Pentagon yesterday. I've been predicting this because I saw them prepping the public for it. I'm going to break it down with Bob coming up in the next segment. Also, calls coming up. Nobel Prize-winning economist, Federal Reserve System is corrupt and undermining our country. That's Joseph Stiglitz, Nobel Prize winner. Continuing here, I've got all these other news articles admitting, here's Joseph Stiglitz again, saying it's corrupt, undermining our country. IMF-style austerity measures come to America. Everything that's been done in other countries now happening here. We're coming to this critical juncture where we're going into total bondage to private banks who are setting up their own government and getting the G20 together to sign on to it. Bob Chapman, continue where we cut you off.
Well, I think that the Greek affair, we'll call it, was instigated and executed because they're going to take all these countries down. They're ready to do it. It'll happen sometime over the next couple of years, if probably more so a year or more from now. But, you know, who knows? But that's what they're steaming for now. I was really surprised they pulled it that way and did it that way. I just didn't expect it, because most people who look at these kinds of things in Europe, they knew all about this. I mean, Greece and Italy's problems.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, you're saying you're surprised. You predicted all of this.
I know, but I'm surprised that they went at it this way, because it's been common knowledge that all these countries were problematic. I thought they'd probably do something with the U.S., execute some sort of a move which would take the country down, and maybe they yet will, to join the others, so to speak. But the culmination of the whole thing is that what they're about now is taking the whole world down. And I think that's not too far away. You know, a year ago we talked about 3 years, and now we're talking about 2 years. But it could be a little bit more expeditious than that.
What Von Rompuy's saying, head of the EU, what Ban Ki-moon, head of the UN, saying, what Gordon Brown, who really is the omnibudsman of this, he says in the next 16 months they're going to form their global banking constitution over all nations. And they said from Copenhagen they don't care if nations don't sign on. The executive branches will implement this. And they're just celebrating.
Well, I don't know whether they'll be celebrating at that time, because the people of the world, I think, are finally going to say, no, we've had enough of this.
We are seeing riots in Indonesia, riots in California, or serious protest, riots in European countries like Greece. Why do the Greeks and the Indonesians get what's going on, but a lot of Americans don't?
Well, I don't think it's gotten difficult enough yet. And, of course, not everybody listens to talk radio or goes on the Internet. And so you have half or more of the population that never comes in contact with this sort of thing. And so that's why they don't know. And Europeans and others in other countries are far more curious than Americans are. Americans tend to be very provincial. Most Americans never leave the United States. In fact, most don't go more than 500 miles from where they were born.
And they think their government loves them and cares about them, but more and more of the polls show they're waking up that that's not the case. They think good guys run America when America's been captured by private banks.
Among other things, but the strata that's controlled by the Illuminists, and that includes many other things, but the bank is certainly the nexus of the whole thing. There's no question about that. You know, money makes it all work, and banking is now Wall Street as well, because many of them have become banks in order to get TARP funds, so they didn't go totally bankrupt at that time. And so I think it's a periphery of things. You know, 7 major insurance companies got TARP money. They haven't paid it back. And I noticed with this TEL thing, they've had a record amount of money that's been requested before it's terminated. And once they terminate these programs and the stimulus runs out, things are going to head downward. And I think
that's what's incredible. I saw an NBC headline where they just cut Medicare and Medicaid by 21% outside of any law. They're cutting all the supposed services while jacking up the taxes. I mean, they've got to know that's going to cause a revolt.
Well, they also got to know that it's going to cause more unemployment, too. And so after the stimulus runs out, it's going to be everybody for himself. And next year will be horrendous, and all of these things will start coming to fore. And in instituting what they're doing, what you just described and I'm describing. Hold
on, let's talk about this key point when we come back. We're going to get into a host of issues.